If you have been told that you have fibroids, you were probably told one of two things: birth control or surgery. And maybe you're sitting there like, okay, cool, but can someone explain to me why this is happening in my body in the first place? Because you're tired, you're bleeding through everything, your belly is inflamed, your mood is tanked, and every single meal is making you bloated and uncomfortable. And yet, no one's explained why. All they've done is give you birth control. So let's fix that. I'm Dr. Bala, and I help you decode your body so that you're not frustrated in the dark about your hormones and your periods. I was working with a woman recently who told me, I feel like my uterus hates me. I've had fibroids for years, and I just keep getting told to wait until they're bad enough for surgery because I don't want birth control. And every single month, she'd have to plan her life around her periods. She had extra clothes in her car, she had pain meds at her desk, and she would dread every single meeting because she wasn't sure when she could get up and change her pad or her tampon. And every time she'd go to the doctor, the visits ended the same. Your only options are birth control. You don't want the pill? Well, then try that IUD. Oh, you don't want an IUD? Maybe we can just get rid of your uterus. And she was only in her 20s. She didn't want to shut down her hormones. She didn't want to take out her uterus. She wanted to understand what was going on in her body. So here's what I wish every woman with fibroids knew. Fibroids aren't just happening for fun, right? Your body's not just like, here you go. This is a good time, right? It's a signal. It's your body's way of saying that estrogen might be really high, progesterone's a little bit too low, and inflammation is running the show. So it's not just bad genetics. Yes, genetics can play a factor. However, your biochemistry and your metabolism play a huge role. So let's make this a little bit more simple. Think about it this way. Estrogen is like fertilizer. It's helping things to grow, like your endometrial lining, which is what is getting shed during your period. Progesterone is the gardener. It's going to keep that growth in check. We don't want things to get too out of hand. And then inflammation is going to be like the weather. If it's stormy, everything gets chaotic. You're just one storm away from a garden full of weeds. And when estrogen is dominating, inflammation is high, your uterus keeps getting that memo to build more tissue. This is how fibroids happen. This is how endometriosis worsens. This is how polyps worsen. This is how cysts form as well. And the worst part is a lot of you have told me, well, my doctor told me that my estrogen levels are normal. Here's the thing. Even if your estrogen levels are normal, on blood work, your estrogen metabolism could still be at play. This comes down to how our gut and our liver are processing that estrogen. So if you struggle with heavy bleeding, if you have a history of fibroids, if you have really bad endometriosis, all of these are signs that your estrogen is struggling to get out of your body. We're going to look at estrogen metabolism like this. Your liver is the cleanup crew and your gut is the exit door. If either one slows down, estrogen builds up and your periods are going to get louder. But here's the part that most people are skipping when they try to address this. You cannot fix fibroids or even your hormones or your period issues at all if your nervous system is dysregulated. So if you're constantly panicking about what you're eating, you're scrolling through social media at 1 a.m., trying every new supplement that you see that's recommended, if you are Googling every symptom, here's what you're teaching your body: that I'm not safe. And a body that doesn't feel safe is not going to heal. So your stress hormones stay high, your progesterone levels are dropping, your inflammation is rising, and suddenly the cycle is feeding itself and you're in this huge loop of inflammation, high estrogen, fibroids, feeling anxious, looking for the next thing, and then nothing ever improves. So before we even talk about liver metabolism, doing any detoxes or gut health, we have to start with calming that chaos. So here's what we're going to do first. Regulate your nervous system. And this could be anything that works for you to tell your body that you're safe. If that's affirmations written everywhere that you look, if that is doing a meditation before work and after work, if that is having more consistent bedtime routines, having a better consistency in the time that you're waking up. Because if you're waking up at 6 a.m. one day for a meeting and then the next day you're waking up at 10 a.m., and then the day after that, you go to bed at 2 a.m. and sleep in until noon, your body has no idea when to wake up and secrete cortisol. And that's throwing everything off. That's throwing off your inflammatory levels. That's throwing off your hormones. It's throwing off your progesterone. Fibroids are going to continue worsening. Your bleeding is going to continue worsening. So please stop and listen to what your body is trying to tell you and get some consistency so that your body knows you are safe. We can start healing. We don't have to keep putting out these fires. Once you have a consistency in your schedule, now we're going to talk about the metabolic stuff. Now we're going to talk about the biochemistry and the other little pieces that we can do. Because again, remember, if you don't have that consistency in your routine, nothing is going to change. So the second thing we're going to focus on is estrogen metabolism. And this, remember, Happens in your liver, happens in your gut. So we're going to focus on things like hydration, adding electrolytes and minerals into our water to make sure that our pee is not dark yellow, but it's also not clear. It's like a light yellow. We are going to focus on making sure that you're eating 3 consistent meals, because just like bedtime being consistent and routine, our meal times have to be consistent and routine as well. So stop skipping your meals, stop pushing through lunch and not eating and binging at dinner. That's going to upset your body. So make sure you're eating 3 consistent meals, focusing on protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Other pieces to help support your liver metabolism are going to be things like castor oil packs or cruciferous veggies. Cruciferous veggies in our liver, it's actually getting converted into I3C, which then gets converted into DIM, as I'm sure you've heard of if you've ever Googled anything about estrogen dominance. So eating cruciferous veggies helps to create and produce DIM in our body. So start eating more cruciferous veggies. That is going to look like kale, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Anything that smells like a fart, basically, is going to be a cruciferous veggie. And it's really helpful for your liver metabolism, specifically of estrogen. I had one woman who was having a kale smoothie every single day, and she told me that after 3 weeks, her breast tenderness went away and her mood swings were getting better. And when she'd stop doing it, it would start to come back. So she did need to be very consistent with that cruciferous, but it made a huge difference for her. So that is how we're going to support estrogen metabolism in our body. Now, the third thing that we're going to do is reducing that inflammation. We are going to cut out overly processed foods. We all know eating out is not great, especially if you're eating out from a drive-through, fast food places. We want to limit the amount of processed foods. If you don't know the ingredients that are in the food, limit that to a couple times a week, but don't do it a couple times a day. That is adding more stress to your body. So even though now that you're working on all of the routines and keeping your nervous system feeling safe, we also need to eliminate that environmental stress, which can look like overly processed foods. It can look like eating out too often. It can look like too much sugar in our diet, too much alcohol in our diet. So those are the things that we're going to work on next to help lower inflammatory levels. And on top of that, I really want you to focus on movement, because movement is going to help move our lymphatics. So if you are not getting at least 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day on top of 2 to 3 times a week of some kind of workout, whether that's Pilates or yoga or strength training or your group fitness class, whatever it is you like to do, I need you to be walking and doing some other movement, because remember, 2 times a week is going to maintain your metabolism. 3 times a week or more is going to change your metabolism. So if you like where you're at least 2 times a week to maintain it. If you want to change where you're at, 3 times a week or more is kind of the golden rule for that. I don't want you to have to live in fear of your uterus, of your periods. Fibroids are not your enemy. They are your body's way of waving a flag and saying, hey, something is out of balance. Please listen. I need you to change something that you are doing because it's not working. And when you stop chasing every supplement, every detox, every quick fix, and we start rebuilding that safety and stability, your symptoms start to quiet down. Things start to improve. Your bleeding starts to improve, your PMS symptoms improve, your breast tenderness goes away. You just start feeling like yourself again, and you feel more confident and in control of what's happening instead of at the mercy of your period every single month. So if you're tired of being told surgery or birth control are your only options, this is your sign to slow down, breathe, learn the language that your body is speaking, because that is what I teach every single day. Once you understand your hormones, you stop fearing them. So hit that like and subscribe if you are ready to stop fighting your body and finally feel safe in it again.